Look at what I just found. This is a lion's mane mushroom. These are a highly sought after edible mushroom. We're going to try to grow some of these. I'm going to show you the easy way you can grow these on pieces of dead wood. They grow on dead spots in oak trees. This is a white oak. This tree has produced one every year ever since I discovered what these were just a few years ago. Last year it put one out right here. Here's a shot of that one. These are not any kind of funny mushroom that you eat because you want to do funny things. These are the kind of mushrooms you eat because you're hungry and you want to have something to eat, and because you like the taste and texture of them. They have become increasingly popular lately because of claims they are highly nutritious, and a recent study has shown they could support cognitive function or even enhance cognitive function. But I am not qualified or certified to talk about anything nutritional or health-wise. You're going to have to look that up yourself. A lot of people say they have maybe I could use some of these, a flavor and texture similar to seafood. They have been compared to crab or lobster. For me, I would say the flavor and texture are kind of weird, but kind of good. Kind of good enough that I eat them. They do grow here naturally, but I don't find very many of them, so I'm going to try to grow some. Since they grow here naturally on white oak, I think we should try to grow them on white oak. To grow them on white oak, we need to find some white oak, which will be easy to do because a few weeks ago, I just happened to cut down a white oak that was in my way, and it was starting to crowd out the trees around it. Since I knew I was going to be wanting some pieces of white oak for growing lion's mane, I cut them into some handleable sized pieces. Lion's mane grow in dead wood, but we need to start them out in freshly cut wood so they can get established before any other fungus does. They only grow in hardwood, they grow in oak and some other hardwoods too. That all happened a few weeks ago. I got that tree mess cleaned up, took those pieces up to my flatbed trailer, inoculated them up there. I will send you up there where a few weeks ago in the past me will take over from there. I think he's at least semi-capable. Good luck with him up there. We have our logs on a nice work surface. We're also going to need the spawn. I got this lion's mane spawn from North Spore. We'll also need some tools, some kind of a drilling tool, a bit, an applicator. I got both of these from North Spore. If you don't have one of these fancy bits, you can use any kind of wood drilling bit that will be the same diameter as this, or at least so this can fit in the hole. We'll bring out our first victim here. We're going to start around a couple inches from the end. It has this stop here, so it will drill the perfect depth. Now we drill another one about 6 inches away from it. Another one about 6 inches away from that. There's no real magic to 6 inches. It's just a good number and provides a sufficient amount of coverage. So we do that until there aren't any more 6 inches left. I bet you never heard that one before, 6 inches. Now from this line of holes we come over to 3 inches. Start our next hole, staggered between these holes, but 2 or 3 inches over. So we have a triangle. Then we keep going down this line. We did this one in between these holes. Now between these holes we do another one here, and another one here, and so on. And there's no magic to these triangles. It's just a pattern we use to make sure we get it spaced out throughout the log. If you just put them randomly around and get good coverage, that's fine too. And what kind of person doesn't like a good triangle? That's got to be worth something. Doesn't want to stay in the position I want it, so we'll flip it around. A drill, cordless or corded, can be great, but if you have a whole lot of them to do, an angle grinder can be even better. North Spore has these angle grinder adapters, which of course are adapters for angle grinders, which you can of course put on an angle grinder to adapt it to the drill bit. Since I don't have a cordless angle grinder here, we're going to need some electricity. And no, this is not an advertisement for power stations. I just use them a lot. With this, we're going to need our ear protection and eye protection because things are going to start flying all over the place. We're going to continue that staggered triangle pattern. Until we're close enough to that first line we made that we don't need any more. The angle grinder just makes it a lot faster if you have a lot of logs to plug. But if you're only doing a few, I don't think it's necessary. A drill is just fine. They sent it to me this spring. It's fall now. It should still be good. It was kept refrigerated. The mycelium's still slowly growing. And it found a small hole in the side of the bag to start growing out of. The next part is easy. We just take this fancy applicator, jam it in there a few times to fill it up, put it in the hole, squeeze it in. There, the hole's filled. Now we do that to all the holes. When I push down on the plunger, if I don't feel resistance right at the end, like it's not squeezing a little bit of it in there, that means it's not filling up all the way. You gotta ram it in there a few more times. Make sure that's good and full. Right there at the end, I feel a little bit of resistance. That's good. Now we just keep going until we get them all filled up. Some people think we are inoculating it with spores, which we are not. Now there may be some spores that happen to get in there, but that's not what we're doing. We're inoculating it with the active mycelium. The mycelium is the body of the fungus. It's all this white stuff. That's mycelium. I've seen videos where people are saying we are inoculating them with spores, but that's a misconception. I think a lot of people visualize it as you're planting a spore and out from that spore will pop a mushroom. And that's just not the case. If you were to look at mushrooms and fungus like a fruit tree, the mycelium would be like the fruit tree. The mushroom would be the fruiting body like the apple that comes out of the fruit tree. This is not spores. If we were to equate this to plants, this would be like taking cuttings of the plant, planting the cuttings, not like planting seeds of the plant. The mycelium we are putting in the holes is going to start growing into the log, spreading throughout the log. It will be consuming the log, and when it's ready to reproduce, that's when it will start popping out mushrooms. The mushrooms are what create the spores, which float out through the air and hopefully reproduce. But it's really hard to reliably make this work by using spores. So we're putting in live mycelium. Now we want to do this with fresh wood, fresh cut wood. You don't want to do this with downed dead logs. But there's a common belief that you should wait 2 weeks after you cut the tree before inoculating it. But North Spore and others now are saying that's actually not true. The idea was you want to wait 2 weeks because the tree has natural defenses that guard it against fungal attacks. And that's what this is. The fungus is attacking and going to eat the log. But even if that's true, it's not going to kill this mycelium. It might prevent it from spreading during those 2 weeks, but the mycelium is still going to be in there. As soon as those resistances die, the mycelium is right there and it can start colonizing. I plugged a few shiitake logs this spring, but I've decided not to do any more in the spring because we have really hot, dry summers here. If I did it in the spring, I would be inoculating it right before it gets really hot and dry, and I don't think that's a good time for it to colonize. In this climate, I'd rather do it in the fall so it has all fall, winter, and spring to colonize before we go into that tough, hot, dry summer. In other parts of the world where they have more humid, wet summers, it's probably easier to get away with doing it in the spring. Okay, we filled up all the holes. Some people say the next step is to wax it. There are different opinions on that. Some say you should wax it, some say you shouldn't wax it, some say you really need to wax it. My dad grows shiitakes with this same technique. He doesn't wax his. He has great results. I don't think my neighbor who grows them waxed his either. My dad is on the coast in a cooler, wetter climate than I have here. The neighbor, he's able to keep his watered all the time. That's the purpose of the wax, is to keep the moisture in, keep them from drying out. We're gonna wax this one. The clever folks at North Spore told me one of the best ways to melt the wax is in a crock pot. Preferably a sacrificial crock pot that you're never gonna have to try to clean and use again for anything else. A lot of their kits come with this granular wax. If we were smart, we would have been heating up the crock pot well before we started, so when we're ready to use it, it'll be melted, which I did, except now I just dumped some new stuff in there. But I think that'll be okay. And North Spore has these applicators. You dip and dab it over each hole. Just one dip and one dab for each hole. Well, they're not holes anymore because now they're filled up. If I turn this upright, maybe that won't be running down the side so much. This way I can do a couple holes on a dab. On a dip. I can dab a couple holes on a dip. You want to make sure it's got a good seal around it. After we get them all waxed, we can wax the ends. We could use the dabber to paint it on, or we could just pick it up and dip it in the wax. But we have a problem with this one. It's too big to fit in there. So I'll have to paint it on there and probably make a mess in the process, which I am good at doing. Same on the other side. These other two are just going to be the same thing. I'll do those really quickly in turbo mode. We're going to use a different method for this one. Prepare yourself for turbo mode. I'm going to do the experiment with the wax. We are back in the present with In the Present Me. I had to intervene because a few weeks ago in the past me was trying to pull off some experiment scheme that I don't think was a good one. The idea was to experiment with completely waxing this one, including the ends, not waxing this one. Of course, I had to move this trailer over here where we got a bunch of mud. With this one, only wax the holes, but not the ends, which I don't think is a good experiment because this one is so much smaller in diameter and it has all these open knots in it for moisture to come and go. I don't think it's a fair comparison. The idea was to save this one to do the Totem method. I was told by the folks at North Spore the method I showed you does work, but the Totem method works better. For the Totem method, you need larger diameter logs. The method I showed is good for those who only have smaller diameter logs, or those who just don't want to cut down their larger hardwood trees. Like in my case, I don't have a lot of larger oaks on this place, so I don't want to cut them down. On this place, I have a lot of smaller diameter oaks that need to be thinned out so they can grow up to be bigger oaks. Growing mushrooms can be a good way to utilize the wood. These 4 to 6 inch diameter trees are about the ideal size. They can be a little smaller than that. They can also be larger. Larger is actually better, except that just makes them more difficult to handle. Other hardwood species can work well too. I'll put a link in the description to a nifty chart North Spore has that'll show you which tree species are compatible with which mushrooms. Since this last one is too small for the Totem method, I decided to inoculate it the same way as the others. I'll only wax over the holes, but not the ends. Now I have 3 that are similar size. I can compare the results. Done. I don't know if I've ever mentioned it before, but a deck over flatbed trailer makes a really nice outdoor workbench. Now I need to put these somewhere. I'm putting these down here by the creek where it stays more cool, moist, and shady during the summer. I put them on these Douglas fir poles. Douglas fir is a softwood. Hardwoods and softwoods usually have different types of fungus that attacks each one of them. So if those Douglas fir poles already have some kind of fungus that's attacking them, it's not likely that those are going to spread to these hardwoods. I don't know if that has any difference in anything. Probably not, but it sounds like more of a well thought out strategy than I just happen to have some Douglas fir here laying around, so that's what I used. Earlier this year, I made a video using the same technique to inoculate logs with shiitake. Several people have asked me how well they have produced. It's too soon for those to start fruiting. They can take a year or more. These lion's mane might take even longer. And I gave the shiitake logs away. I go to the coast for the summer. This place has really hot, dry summers. I am not here in the summer to keep them moist. I don't think they would do well here without someone here to take care of them. Or set up some kind of a system to keep them moist, which I just haven't done. Maybe someday I will. My dad grows shiitakes over on the coast. They do very well over there in that cooler, wetter climate. This is the flush he was having when I left there in September. But shiitakes are very different mushrooms than these lion's mane we just did. Since lion's mane is able to grow here naturally in this climate, I'm thinking maybe I can get away with growing lion's mane if I put them down at the creek where it's a little cooler and wetter. This may have an advantage. It may be getting some moisture from the tree going into the dead wood. This is all just an experiment. We'll have to wait and see how they do. There is something about lion's mane people commonly get wrong. This is what I was told by a super turbo, technically advanced, professional field mycologist. A lot of people think the species name for lion's mane is Erinaceus, but they're wrong. Erinaceus is just the epithet. A species name needs to include both the genus and the epithet. Hericium erinaceus is the more accurate species name according to scientific nomenclature. For example, humans, I think we all know, are Homo sapiens. That's our species name. Sapien is the epithet. We wouldn't call us by the epithet, call us sapiens. We are Homo sapiens, which is just a fancy way of saying a species name needs to have two names in it, not just the epithet, which is just a fancy way of saying, well, I'm not sure what it's a fancy way of saying. For that, you would need to consult a super turbo, technically advanced, professional field mycologist. Most people probably don't care about that, but that's the kind of thing that grinds the gears of scientists. If you want to have a little bit of fun and annoy a scientist, try calling something by just the epithet. That bit went on for a ridiculously long time. Most of you probably clicked off in the first 10 seconds of that. I might as well end the video now. I'll put a link to North Spore, the spawn, and the tools I used in the description. They have all kinds of supplies, techniques for growing all kinds of mushrooms. If you want to know how these lion's mane turn out, check back in another year or two. I'll put something else for you to watch up here. That should keep you busy until those pop out.